How are you feeling?
Good. They said I had a screw loose, but they tightened it.
They tightened it up for you? Well, good. You hearing well? That's right. That's right. Jenny, how's he doing? Great, good. Did you get the TV turned down a little bit?
It's not on yet, 6 weeks.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. She's anticipating. She said she's going to have a party for us, for you, for herself, I guess.
I still heard them when they were calling Jimmy. That's
Oh, that's... Well, hey, it is good to see you this morning. Glad you're here on this holiday weekend, and maybe some people try to squeeze in a last getaway, and I'm jealous of them if they have, and you're jealous of them if they have as well. I do want to share one thing. I had a message on the phone this week, and somebody, I don't know when it was, but somebody was at one of the hospitals, maybe in Paducah. I'm assuming, I don't think they said the name of the hospital. She said she was there with her husband. It wasn't Walmart, so that left, it still may have been you, but somebody was passing out these little cards right here. It says, "Good morning, this is Jesus. I'll be handling your problems today. I will not need your help, so relax and have a great day." Whoever did that at one of the hospitals, some lady from Princeton was there with her husband, and she called to tell you thank you very much for doing that. She's placed it by her phone, and it gives her a little bit of encouragement every day. So I just want to share that with you, that somebody was appreciative for somebody in this body reaching out and thinking of them and placing that in their hands. She did say she did say it was a lady. She said it was an older lady that gave her that card. So again, that's what she said. Did you see somebody in Princeton? Nobody here. Oh. Yeah. Perhaps she found it on the ground or something. No old ladies here. Her words, not mine. That's why I said it. That's why I thought it was okay. Some you leave out. I saved it. I say it's still on there, so I saved it. I thought it was a good one to save. So, anyway, she found that somewhere. But, okay, Mark chapter 6 is where we're at this morning. You watch news reports. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you get encouraged by some news reports you see. Maybe you're discouraged by some of the news or the things that you see on TV. Maybe they even depress you at times. Maybe you're in the boat and you follow this stuff. I know some of you are retired, so it doesn't register, and you just kind of blow right by it, and it's of no concern to you. But you read these numbers, you see these numbers, and maybe you are disheartened for other people. But you see, sometimes you see unemployment numbers, and you see what they're at, and you wonder if the unemployment numbers are so good. If they're so good right now, then how come the outlook is so bad? How come it seems so bad? Well, I'm going to tell you what Bob Petter, he was, of course, he was one of the children that inherited Henry Petter Supply there in Paducah that's been around for 100 and possibly 30 years now. But he said it was like Christmas time when they hired this fabulous, educated, master-level accountant who had all these initials after his name. MBA, CPA, anything else that went along with business. He had that after his name. And he said it was Christmas time for him because he had this new accountant in the office. Well, I'll tell you how these numbers work. It was amazing. It was amazing how every year Petter Supply would say, well, we can't give you a raise because the sales are so bad this year. But yet they continue to stay in business, and they hired this fancy CPA. So it was always my belief that the CPA, it just matters how you turn the chart. The graph can really be going up, but when the new CPA comes in, he can turn the chart just, a couple of turns, and the graph's always going down. Well, that's kind of same way with some of the numbers. I can see you don't get that, but I can. It's kind of some same way with some of these numbers. We can make numbers say really whatever we want them to say. So why do we feel that things are bad, maybe in the economy, maybe in the global marketplace? Well, you stop to factor in, or you think about that, talking about unemployment. So many people have just completely stopped looking for work. You hear that. You hear that mentioned on TV. People have just given up on looking for work, and they've just kind of checked out. They've just thrown their hands up and say, just forget it. Then you think about there's more people that rely on government than ever before. Maybe they are some of the people as well. They've just thrown their hands up. But government is so far-reaching now, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum is. It seems like more people, there's more people receiving assistance than there are in the workplace, in the workforce. And that could very well be true. I don't know. And it's difficult. Even if you find you're looking, maybe you desire to have a good quality paying job with good benefits, with good insurance, and it's just hard to do. Even if minimum wage was $15 an hour, still desire quality job with quality benefits. Well, in these days and times, we find ourselves with limitations. We're up against limitations every day. You know what? Somebody told me one time, said, aren't you glad that so many people, I guess I'm just on this unemployment thing today, but aren't you glad that so many people are back at work? And I said, well, I said that's great, but me, the skeptic, and they went on to say, they basically saying, the unemployment is the lowest it's ever been since Adam and Eve, and I said, well, that's great. That number sounds good, but I'm the skeptic, and I don't really believe it. And here's why I talk about the graph thing. I said, if I go to Walmart, it used to be when I worked at Petter, I'd get a lunch break about noontime or 1 o'clock, maybe 11:30, and I could drive from the mall area. I could drive to the Walmart there by the mall, and at noon I could get a decent parking place. Years ago, I could drive up there to Walmart by the mall. I could get a decent parking place at lunchtime. But now, if you don't get there before 10 o'clock, I'm telling you, you got to park in the back. Walmart is packed, especially out there in Paducah at the mall. It's a crazy house. It's just El Nutso if you get there after 10 o'clock. It's just packed. That's the way it is. So what does that tell me? That tells me that these people are no longer working. It tells me that they're at Walmart shopping and probably in their pajamas. They just got out of bed or something. But that's the truth too. You see it. You know it. You all wanted to say it, but I said it for you. So you feel better about it. But that's the truth. So we're faced, we're looking, we're concerned about things. We have limitations in our life. And that person told me when I said that, I said, well, I'm not so sure that those numbers are right, because I give him this Walmart analogy, and he says, you know what? That's kind of true. I see that. I see what you're saying. These people who used to be at work, when I went at lunchtime, I could just drive right up there. They're no longer at work anymore. Maybe they're struggling. Well, you read about this. Maybe you've experienced something like this firsthand. Maybe something happens in the economy or the world system, and things that used to be needed for the marketplace are no longer needed, and you lose your job. You have a good paying job. You had a good benefits with your job. You had insurance. You had dental. You had vision. You had a good pension. You had a good retirement. But somehow or another, that thing is just gone now. You've lost your job. And to settle for another job, you have to take a 30, 50, 70% pay cut just so you can go to work. I remember my mother did that. She worked in the office of this clothing manufacturer in Paducah. It was a decent job, but she had been there for a long time. And her going on unemployment was foreign to her. I remember she settled for a piddly job She could have been making, she was making more on unemployment the short time that she was on unemployment. And then she takes this job just because she wanted to work. She thought she needed to work. When she got that first paycheck, she realized this isn't going to cut it. So she had to take a 30, 40, 50% pay cut to work. And maybe that's one of you this morning. Maybe that's some of us this morning. Maybe we realize that we're faced against limitations. So what do you do when you have less and less and you have more and more things are taking your resources? We're going to look. We're going to look at Mark chapter 6 here in just a minute. So, but what do you do? What do you do when you pray? Still talking about this, what do you do when you pray that, man, that there would just be a little bit of overtime this week so that I can take my kids to the dentist and I can pay that $200 dentist bill for their checkup and for their cleaning and for their x-rays? What do you do when you say, man, I hope there's some overtime over the next 2 weeks or in this paycheck period so that I can go to this, so I can take the same kids to the eye doctor so we can get that $250 pair of glasses with that eye exam? What do you do when you say, man, I just hope there's a little bit of extra to go around because I sure need to put some tires on the vehicle because winter is coming up and we need to have something, even if it's a good used set, because the tires we have now have wires sticking out of them? What do you do when you just don't have the resources and you are faced with limits in your life? We all have bad weeks from one time or another. But a friend of mine called me on the way home. I guess I was earlier this week, and coming home, and he said, "Hey, my wife just told me our hot water heater is out. It's leaking." And I said, "Well, if you need any help, let me know." And so he says, "I guess you do. Can you mind stopping by?" And so I did. I stopped by his house, checked it, and it's hot. Sure enough, man, the whole thing was just leaking, just almost pouring out of the bottom of it, rusted through or something. Said we need to get a new one. And he said, we're talking about limited resources here, okay? So stay with me. I said, you need to go get a new one. Let's take this thing out. We'll go to Lowe's. We'll grab one. It was late in the evening. And as we're driving on the way to Lowe's to pick one up, he says, like $500 or something to pick one up. And he said, well, I guess there goes our money for this month. I just kind of sat there and I thought, I'm going to let you think I live a perfect life. That's what I was thinking. He was thinking I didn't have any expenses. He was thinking nothing ever went wrong in my life. So I just thought to myself, I'm going to let you think I got it good. At least somebody in this world will think I've got it good. So he does. He goes through the day, or maybe even to the next day, and he sees me the next day, or I send him a message, hey, how's your hot water heater? I'm going to tell you what, man, that hot water heater was a bear. But anyway, that's a whole nother story right there. Hooked up backwards to begin with. The city water was put in the hot water side, and the hot water was shooting out the cold side. It was all backwards, and anyway, ruined my clothes, my most favorite clothes I ever had. Ruined those things, but I forgot where I was. Oh, he thought I had the perfect life. The next day, I said, hey, how's your hot water? Man, we got hot water. It's great. We got hot water now. That's good. Good for you. And then I saw him. I think I saw him that afternoon or the next afternoon, and I said, just so you know, I had to pay $850 for Brenna to go to the dentist the other day, and I have another $850 bill to pay now this month as well. Just so you know, Amy's brakes on her car were almost out, and the little booster pump on that thing quit working, so that's $450. Just so you know, Michaela needs to have her wisdom teeth out, and that's another $1,500. Just so you know, do we need to go on with this? No. Your $500 hot water heaters look, just so you know, just so you know, Amy sends me a message Friday. I'm trying to leave the house. It took me 15, 20 minutes extra to leave the house, and the chain to the garage door is now on the outside of the garage door. That's another $200. So if all you have is a $500 hot water heater, consider yourself lucky for the month. Well, there goes that for the month, I guess. That was just 1 week for us. I'm serious as a heart attack. That was 1 week. Anybody else got limitations? All right. So we're at Mark chapter 6, and we're looking at some limitations. And there's a limitation that presents itself here. Jesus is going to deal with this. The disciples have to deal with this. And Mark, we're looking at Mark. Mark is probably the first gospel that was written, and he writes this, and he uses a word in his gospel immediately. He uses it 40 times. Mark paints a picture of his gospel as if he's a storyteller. He's saying like, boom, this happened, boom, the garage door went out, boom, the hot water heater went out, boom, the brakes went out. It's like boom, boom, boom. He's painting this picture. He's a storyteller. He's telling a story of what happened. It's almost like an action story, an action movie. Now, there is a miracle in this gospel, apart from the resurrection, that is shared in all 4 other gospels as well. There has some significance to this miracle. Now, for the fact, it must be a spectacular miracle for it to be mentioned, for it to be the only miracle that is mentioned in all 4 Gospels. Significant. It's the feeding of the 5,000. Now, that's the miracle. The miracle is, not only was 5,000 significant, but in all reality, it was probably well over 5,000. Why? Because in Jewish culture in that day, all they did was calculate the men. The men above, I believe, maybe 13 years of age is all the ones that they've counted that were on the hillside that day. So who does that leave? That leaves the women and the children. So more than likely, there could have easily been 10, 12, 15,000 people there that day that were fed. So this miracle is a miracle of limitations. But it interests us because we have limitations in our lives. We're faced with them every day. Now, as we read this, verse 32 here, as we read this, we really need to notice their location. They went away in the boat to a secluded place. Secluded means lonely, desolate. Nothing was there. Deserted place. There was nothing there. They were in a lonely place. Now let's look. Let's take this. Verse 30 through 32. The apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, come away. So they've been busy. They've had a busy day. They've been working. They've been teaching. They've been doing things. They've been helping others. They've been serving. They've been ministering. And he said to them, come away by yourself to a secluded place. There it is again. And rest a while, for there were many people coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. They went away in the boat to a secluded place by themselves. Verse 35. When it was already quite late, the disciples came to him and said, this place is desolate, and it is already quite late. It is already late in the day. Now, thousands and thousands of people are watching them move around. Thousands and thousands of people are following around. They're teaching, they're serving, they're ministering, they're doing things. And they see them, and Jesus says, let's move off to this lonely, to this secluded, to this desolate place. Now, the feeding of the 5,000, think about this now. picture this in your mind because I don't think this conclusion is wrong. Feeding of the 5,000, who else fed a great number of people? Moses did. Moses Moses did not. Moses prayed to the heavens, and God sent manna. God fed the Hebrews, fed the children in the wilderness. So Moses is part of that. He prays. He prays to God. God provides for the people. God sends the manna. Another person who fed 100 people was Elisha. Elisha feeds 100 people with bread. Now Jesus is going to come and feed upwards of 5,000 people. Now there's another time. We just look here at verse 39. Jesus is showing through this that he's greater than Moses. Jesus is showing that he's greater than Elisha, verse 39. And he commanded them to sit down by groups on the green grass. Now, who does that sound like? That sounds like David. That sounds like the shepherd David. That sounds like him writing Psalms. Jesus is showing, he says, I'm greater than Moses. I'm greater than the prophets. And I'm greater than David as well. So Jesus is showing that to them. He shows that when you give me your limitations, I will meet your needs. That's what Jesus is displaying. If you look right above this passage right here, and you'll see another account. Jesus is going to have the people sit down, and he's going to feed them. He's going to feed them a banquet. If you look right above this, you're going to see another time when somebody else hosted a banquet. Who is it? It's Herod. You look in there, you'll see the account of Herod. Herod's going to host a banquet. He's going to have this big party, and these people are going to come. And his wife's daughter is going to dance around, and what's going to be the outcome of it? John the Baptist is going to be killed. There's going to be death that takes place at Herod's banquet. So Herod holds a feast. What was Herod's feast for? It was for him. Herod holds a feast, holds a banquet for one person, himself, and his banquet ends in death. But here, Jesus holds a feast which ends in ministry. It's a picture of serving that whosoever will may come. Herod's banquet was limited to just him being the person of honor. Jesus Christ says, whosoever will may come, and I will serve you. I will feed you. I will meet your needs. Jesus' banquet is a picture of the great wedding feast. Jesus' banquet is a picture of the kingdom of God. Herod's kingdom was on its way out, but Jesus Christ's kingdom knows no end. So verse 33 here in Mark chapter 6. What do we do when we're faced with life's limitations? We try to handle it ourselves, and that's what the disciples do. The people saw them going, and many recognized them and ran there together on foot from all the cities and got there ahead of them. So their geography of the area that they're in, they're kind of in a low area, a bowl area, mountains around them, hills around them, and the people are on the hills, and they can kind of see down into it, and they can kind of see the way that they're going, that Jesus and the disciples, which way they're headed. So they can say, hey, they're going this way. Let's move over this way. So that's how they were able to traverse the terrain and get there ahead of them. They could see what was taking place. So they move on ahead. Verse 34. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. So see, here's some more teaching. They've been teaching all day. They've been serving all day. They've been ministering all day. And Jesus sees these people. He has this compassion, this inner pain for them. He looks upon their face, and he has this empathy for them, and he teaches them some more. He says, gather around. I've got some more teaching. Verse 35. When it was already quite late, his disciples came to him and said, this place is desolate, and it's already quite late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Now we handle situations the same way the disciples did. What do? They have been teaching. They've been ministering, they've been serving all day, and nobody has made arrangements for food. They've procrastinated. We procrastinate in our daily life. We procrastinate in the decisions that need to be made. Nobody has arranged anything for food, and these disciples, since they have procrastinated, what are they going to do? They're going to look for an easy way out. Jesus, just send them away. Send them off. Tell them to leave. Tell them to fend for themselves. They're thinking, if these people will be out of sight, they'll be out of mind. That's the same way we handle situations in our own life. We get a bill in the mail, we get a payment in the mail, we get something in the mail. Don't open it. Don't open it. Just leave it in the mailbox for a couple of more days. We'll act like we didn't get it if they call for it. Leave it there on the counter, out of sight, out of mind. If you don't look at it, we think we don't have to deal with it. That's what we do. That's what the disciples are doing. The disciples are procrastinating, and that procrastination leads to frustration. Verse 37. They have said, send them away, get rid of them. But he answered them, you give them something to eat. And they said to him, shall we go and spend 200 denarii on bread and give them something to eat? The disciples respond. They move from procrastination to now they're frustrated because they're saying, Jesus, are you kidding? What have you done? What are you talking about? You're crazy. You're nuts. They're frustrated with the situation. They look at their money bank and they say, there's nothing we can do. Let's just throw our hands up and walk away. Surely you are not expecting us to provide for these people. Jesus, let's just walk away from this hopeless cause. That's what we do in marriages. We procrastinate in taking care of the marriage. Then we get frustrated when the needs aren't met. And then we just want to throw our hands up and walk away from the marriage. Parents do the same thing with kids. We didn't give them guidance. We didn't give them leadership. We didn't teach them the way to live. And when the kids aren't acting the way we want them to act, we just throw our hands up and say, you're on your own. Forget it. I'm done with you. We do that with our jobs. We do that with our payments, our debt. We say we just throw our hands up, just forget it. Let's just walk away from it, from our commitment, from our responsibility. When we don't throw our hands up and walk away, then we just say, we give the impression that I'll just do it myself. I'll take care of this issue myself, this problem myself. I will do it on my own. Procrastination leads to frustration, and we want to quit. We want to check out. So what did Jesus say in verse 37? He says, you feed them. You give them something to eat. Now remember, where were they? In a desolate place. They were in a lonely place. It said a secluded place. But Jesus says, you feed them, you give them something to eat. There was not a Chick-fil-A on the corner for them to go to. Not only was there not a Chick-fil-A, there wasn't even a JoJo's to go to. There was nothing. There was nothing around. And it's late. These guys are tired. And they talk about the money. Look, we can't do it. We'd have to spend 200 denarii on bread to feed these people. Jesus, are you seriously want to give up 2/3 of a year's wage to feed these people a little bit of bread? So then what do? They drag a kid up. Say, look, Jesus, here's a boy. He's got 5 loaves and 2 little fishies right here. See, we told you this couldn't be done. Jesus, I told you I couldn't meet these needs right here in my life. It's not working out in my life. It's not going the way it's supposed to go. I'm just going to throw my hands up and say, forget it, I quit. That's where the disciples were. We told you, Jesus, this couldn't be done. Let's send them away. Look back at verse 1 there in Mark chapter 6. This was just a few days before. Jesus went out from there and came into his hometown. and his disciples followed him. They were on board. They were looking forward to this new adventure, something good, something big. Here's something's going to take place. What happens in verse 7? He summoned the 12 and began to send them out in pairs and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. What's he do? He's going to call them together. He says, I'm going to anoint you. I'm going to equip you. I'm going to empower you. I'm going to send you out in these pairs right here. And you're not going to have any money. You're not going to take any bread with you. You're not going to take an extra tunic, a blanket. That's what it was. It was a blanket to cover up with. He says you don't need a pillow. You don't need a place to stay. It'll be provided for you when you get there. And you stay in that house as long as you're in that town. And what do? He's called them together. He sent them out. And what are they going to do? Verse 12 and 13. They went out and preached that men should repent. And they were casting out many demons and were anointing with oil many sick people and healing them. The same guys that are throwing their hands up just days later, or days earlier, were casting out demons, were healing the sick, were doing miraculous things, and now they're faced with this limitation, and they say, Jesus, it just can't be done. Now, we're talking just a couple of days, a very short time period. They had done miraculous things, but when they procrastinated, got frustrated, got tired, got upset, looked at their resources, they said, Jesus, it can't be done. What I have will not work. That's us. We see obstacles and we throw up our hands. We see obstacles, we think it can't be done, and we act like God has never worked in our life before. God, you have never met my needs in my life before. God, you have never provided for me before. I'm just giving up. And just days earlier, he met your need. He met their need. Gave them supernatural power. What we need to do is to place our resources in his hands. Verse 38. So he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go, look. He says, go look. He says, go. Every one of you, go. Search. Jesus already knew what was out there. This doesn't catch him by surprise. He knows what the resources are. He knows what is available to use. So he says, go look. And when they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. When they found, Jesus already knew it was there. They find it now. They report back to him. They find it and think, Jesus, here it is. It's not enough. Jesus, it doesn't look like it's going to work. Jesus, this is what I have. It's not going to work. Verse 39, and he commanded them all to sit down by groups on the green grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Now here's what you need to remember right here. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them. And he divided up the 2 fish among them all. You need a miracle in your life. The disciples needed a miracle in their life. Jesus is going to provide. Where does this miracle take place? The miracle for Moses to feed the children of Israel took place when he prayed to God. God sent the miracle. God's here with them now. The Son, the second person in the Trinity, is here in their midst with them. Where does this miracle take place? It takes place in the hands of Jesus. The miracle you are looking for, the provision that you need in your life, where will that miracle take place? When you place it in the hands of Jesus. You say, well, I don't have enough. I don't have enough to go around. I don't have enough for the bills. My job's not good enough. My job doesn't meet the needs of the family. This isn't working. That isn't working. We need something else. When you stop looking at what you can do and what you have, and when you begin to trust Jesus and place it in His hands, that's when the miracle took place. If the disciples had taken the fish and the bread and filleted that fish and put it on a fire and given it to the people to eat, what would they have had? They'd have had enough for maybe one person. But when they took the resources and placed it in the hands of Jesus, what happened? What does the text say? The text says that He kept giving. He blessed the food, broke it. First He takes it, it's in His hands, but then He kept giving. It meant more and more. There was enough, there was plenty. He kept passing it out. He kept doing and doing and doing. When we put our limitations in His hands, it becomes enough. And if you read beyond that, 42 says they all ate. They were all satisfied. When you put your limitations in His hands, there's enough. And they picked up 12 full baskets. Not only is there enough to meet the need, but there was leftovers. There was more. When we build a wall around our ability, around our resources and say, I'll manage this part of my life, Jesus, you just stay out of it, we're met with limitations. We're met with frustration. We're met with inadequacy. But when we place what we have in His hands and say, you be Lord of all the areas of my life, I will submit to you in all areas, what happened? They had enough and they had more. I can't tithe. I can't tithe because I got to replace a garage door. I got to take out wisdom teeth. I got dental work. Got who else? Who knows what else? Boy, I could have thought of a half a dozen reasons. You could think of a dozen reasons every week not to allow God to have some resource that you have. Not to allow God to work in your limitation. You can think of a dozen reasons not to put a tithe in the plate as it goes by. But it's amazing what happens when we put the little that we have into His care. He blesses it. It's enough to get by. And matter of fact, it says it's more. When we give what we have, He makes it complete. Let me pray for you. I want to ask you to bow your head. Maybe you've done all you can. Maybe you've done all you can with your children, with your job. Maybe you've done all you can with your finances, with your bank account, with your employment or unemployment. You think, well, I've done all I can in this area. This is what I have. Have you placed that need in His hands? Yes, we are to be responsible. We are to do what we can do with what we have. He gave us a brain to think, but we also need to realize that His ways are better. If I was to ask you this morning, maybe you want to be honest, maybe you want a show of hands, with every head bowed, with all your eyes closed, does anybody here have a limitation in their life that you're dealing with? Anybody? Any hands? So obviously the Word has convicted you that there is something in your life that maybe you're just not trusting Him completely with. Whatever the issue is, whatever the circumstance is, whatever the need is, you have said, I have a limitation in my life. I'm asking you. I've shown you where Jesus blesses. What you see as small, insignificant, and unable to meet the need, put that in His hands. When you release it from your hands, place it in His. A miracle may just happen. I ask you to stand as we sing this invitation.